Hi, everyone. Welcome to our new podcast. We're going to call it Change is Hard, y'all. I'm here with my two friends, Aaron and Shay.
Hey. Hey.
We're all in my guest room making a podcast. We have no idea what we're doing. We've never made a podcast. We don't have a professional staff, but Shay's looking at a bunch of YouTube videos, figuring out editing.
Yeah.
And we have these fancy microphones, and we're going to do it. We started talking about a change that Aaron made, and we thought, we need to discuss this. We need to put Aaron's story out in the world, and we think that change is really important. It's a universal phenomenon, and we want to discuss it. We're going to interview different people in future episodes, and we hope to hear really deeply personal stories about people who made drastic changes and how they did it, what they gained, what they lost. We want to figure out and hear from them what the catalyst was for their change. So I think we should get started. As I said, I'm Leslie, and I'm going to let Shay talk a little bit about some of her thoughts about doing hard change.
Hi there. So, I'm Shay, and what I'm actually going to talk about is a phrase that Aaron came up with. So the podcast is called Change is Hard, y'all. And the phrase that we've been working with is the phrase hard change. And when I think about times that something has changed in a way that was really difficult, like really disorienting, often that's the kind of change that is really a revolution, something that is a big change. And I think that something that can characterize that kind of change is when the change isn't something that is just like getting built or getting added onto you, but it is when something gets unlearned, unmade, unbuilt. Some foundational practice or attitude or habit or belief, when that gets unmade, especially if it is a really deeply held one, then the whole world shifts and takes on a new configuration once that belief or attitude or habit no longer is taking up its place. And that kind of change can just really open a completely new chapter in life because you're living in a completely different world after that. And that's the kind of change that we're really interested in. Those times that you take a corner and leave something behind, but then find something new. So we're going to be talking about that kind of thing. And the three of us are going to start off by just discussing some changes that we've made along the way that might fit into a category kind of like that. We're just going to go around the room, basically. So to my left is Leslie.
Okay, I made some changes in my life along the way, many different ones, and most of them were not that hard. They may have seemed foundational, but I never really bought into the foundation that we're talking about, the culture I lived in, the society I lived in, which was the South in the 60s when women joined the junior league and you got married right out of college and you were a debutante and you went to dances and
picked out china.
Yeah, picked out china. When you got married, it was all displayed on a table in your parents' living room. And I did that. I got married 2 days after college graduation and had the big wedding and was the debutante. And then I was the corporate wife, had 2 children. And I just kept thinking along the way, something's wrong, this doesn't fit me. And so I just take little steps to change and started going to city council meetings and started reading a lot of different things. And so my changes weren't necessarily overly hard, they felt really good to me. They were hard on some of my family members and my friends. They had no idea what was going on with me. But I'll talk more about it in future episodes. But change for me has been so rewarding and makes you feel like your true self. And that's what I think all of us should feel, is our true selves. Erin, you want to tell us about?
I'll try and keep it broad strokes. I tend to get down rabbit trails. So, okay. I grew up in a very conservative Baptist background in working class town in Pennsylvania. You may have heard of Scranton, aka setting of The Office. No, Dunder Mifflin does not exist. So my parents, both blue collar, very hardworking, did all they could to kind of scrape together, making sure that we had the basics and what we needed, but the center of our lives was very much the church. Church. So all your friends were people from church. Your whole framework for life and how you viewed the world was church. And to be in that church, you needed to fit certain criteria or certain rules. And I just did not fit ever. I was your quintessential tomboy. Kind of hate that term, but most people understand kind of basically what I mean when I say that. Whereas to be proper or to fit the mold in the church, you would be, a girly girl. You liked skirts and dresses. You liked putting those things on for church, whereas those made me feel like an alien from Mars. And I wanted nothing less than to never put one on again and never go to church again. So it was kind of always coming up against either not meeting the expectations or not fitting the way I was supposed to. So the whole wear dresses and makeup and play with Barbies and like boys, I thought it was all bullshit and nonsense and wanted nothing to do with it. So you could find me playing baseball or football or riding dirt bikes or any of the things that my mom found horrifying were my favorites. So I swore like a sailor. I was always filthy. It was just a mess. She was a 1950s proper, you know what I mean, Baptist woman. Just didn't get it. So that was interesting. And then so for me, change has always been, I was never the right thing to begin with. So then it was always just navigating my differences and how do I maintain who I am, but also please my family, which I really, really wanted to do. But so change has always been, I think, easier for me in the sense that I was never the thing to begin with. So how do I navigate those kind of changes? And also heavily military family, so big pivots in my life are like pivots away from the church and pivots away from military and militarized thinking and nationalist thinking, and so I'll be talking more about that.
Thanks, Erin.
This is Shay, and I would just say that the category of changing that I've done is a kind of an interesting complement to Erin's. She's been in the position of having her world and her culture and her family and all these external forces telling her one thing about herself and having that thing not ring true. And I never really thought the world was going to tell me much about anything. I definitely grew up in a family where we're encouraged to think critically and question authority and question whatever we were told. So I didn't really harbor an expectation that the world was gonna tell me who I was, and that has turned out to be a perfectly good and reasonable baseline. But I did, somewhere along the line, pick up the idea that my interior life was probably harboring some kind of truth, maybe some kind of ultimate truth, and that's where to look for whatever I wanted to know. What I've come to learn over time is that is not entirely right. That the interior world of a human is a complicated place, and some of it is absolutely shining in its clarity and hopefulness, and some of it is absolutely quicksand, populated by snakes. It's just really not what you want to use to make any decision about what's happening now or what you're going to do next. And so the changes that I have gone through have had a lot more to do with removing the authority from some of my interior spaces so that they don't get to run my overall ship without any question. And that's sometimes been a difficult, humbling process. Kind of easy example would be being, I don't know, like 22-ish, so this is like almost 30 years ago, and realizing that I was going to be accepting a mental health diagnosis, and that was going to come with taking medication to change some of my insides, because some of my insides were sending me faulty information, and unbelievably loud faulty information, not just little whispers of nonsense, just huge blaring signals that I was, in an incredible emergency or like on a different planet. Like, it's just really strong signals that were not trustworthy. And changing the way that I experienced signals coming from my insides, to shift the category from, like this absolute truth that's coming from my interior life, and so it's my truth, and so it's definitely the truth, like that whole thing. Yeah, that had to go just to kind of get through the days. And something more like discernment, something more like curiosity had to show up. There had to be a dialogue between whatever some central me is and these aspects of my experience. And that kind of shift has changed everything. So that's the sort of kind of stuff I'll probably be talking about. A lot of my stuff is interior changes, rather than a turning away from some particular external focus.
So one of the great things for me about getting to know Shay is that curiosity. So I'm meeting her 20 plus years after the fact, right? So curiosity is like the go-to with Shay. It's like, interesting, what's that about? And like that element has been so refreshing, because everything about my upbringing was, I'm bad, right? My original sin, everything about you is bad, depraved, beyond redemption, bad. So you have to, your whole life is about needing God and Jesus and the Bible to save you from this badness, this that you were born with. But like reframing that and meeting people like Shay has just been like, not everything's bad. Like, not, you could just, you know what I mean? It's just interesting. Let's talk about it. What does it mean? What does it not mean? We don't know. We could figure it out. Or not. That's fine too. It's just always just been like such a relief to someone who was always like it's bad. It must be bad, just bad. Just bury that one deep. And instead, it's just a totally different perspective. But like everything about my upbringing was like you're taught what the world means and this whole outer structure and how you're supposed to view it. And then Shay's experience is very much internal. How do I view my insides and what that's telling me? So like such a great juxtaposition of I need to question the outer structure and what I was told about it. Shay's questioning the inner and what that's telling her.
Between the two of us, we've covered
we
all of the things.
We got it.
Okay, great.
But what you're both doing are hard changes. I mean, come on, think about it. I gave up being a debutante type person. I gave up, not protesting the circus. I gave up silly stuff like that. But you both have done incredibly hard work. And I think that's why it's going to be important to talk to both of you individually with more of your stories and then talk to other people, because our audience members may really find something valuable in how you've accomplished these changes. It sounds like it took a lot of work. So we want to hear more. And actually, we're going to hear more next episode of Erin's story. She's going to dig a little deeper and talk a little bit more about the pivot points in her life. So we look forward to that. Thank you, Erin, for being the catalyst of this podcast.
Oh, anytime.
When she told us her story, and Shay and I looked at her and said, podcast. So here we are, a year or so later. Okay, we want to hear your stories. So please get in touch with us if you have a story about your change and you're willing to come on and talk about it with us. You can reach us at changeishard, without the apostrophe, @gmail.com. Give us a ring, an email, and we'll get back to you, and maybe you'll be one of our guests soon. We hope so. Okay, everyone, you want to say goodbye?
Okay, bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
See you next time. Yeah, bye, y'all.
You're not good.